10 years before she died, Isabel Bennet asked Noah for a promise. Not a large promise, not an impossible one, just a strange one. Inside this envelope, she told him, is a question. One day you will answer it, but not today, not next year, not even 5 years from now. Wait 10 years. Noah laughed when she said it. 10 years sounded like a lifetime. Then Isabel died, and suddenly 10 years sounded like something he was not certain he could survive. What Noah didn't know was that the question inside that envelope wasn't really about Isabel. It was about a truth he would spend an entire decade learning how to face. She gave him the envelope on an ordinary Tuesday evening, a detail that stayed with Noah long after ordinary Tuesdays had stopped feeling like something he was entitled to. They were sitting at the kitchen table after dinner. It was the particular quiet of two people comfortable enough that silence required no management. Isabel slid the envelope across the table without preamble. It was sealed. His name was on the front in her handwriting. He asked what was inside. One question, she said. What question? That was the point of waiting. Why 10 years specifically? She looked at him with the expression she reserved for things she had already finished deciding. She said, because 10 years is how long it takes. How long what takes? He asked. She didn't answer that one. He agreed because refusing her felt impossible, and because 10 years seemed safely abstract. He tucked the envelope into the back of his desk drawer and thought about it occasionally, until other things required his attention. 3 months later, Isabel was gone. The envelope became the most significant object in his possession. Grief did not arrive as Noah had expected. It arrived as a reorganization of everything ordinary. The way light came through the kitchen window, the particular silence of an apartment where someone used to exist, the specific weight of a Tuesday evening with nowhere it needed to go. He moved twice in the first 3 years. The envelope came with him each time, transferred deliberately from drawer to drawer with the care of something irreplaceable. He carried it through his sister Mara growing up, through her graduation, through the years of rebuilding a life around a shape that had permanently changed. Year 6 was the year he almost broke the promise. He had received difficult medical news of his own. Nothing ultimately serious, but serious enough in the hours before he understood the full picture. He sat alone at 11 o'clock at night with the envelope in his hands and his thumb beneath the sealed flap. What if 10 years was too long? What if he needed whatever was inside it now? He sat with the envelope for 40 minutes. Then he put it back. Not because the temptation had passed, but because honoring the promise had become, across 6 years of keeping it, the primary way he knew how to remain in relationship with her. Breaking it would have cost him something he could not afford to lose. The 10th year arrived without ceremony. Noah sat at the same kitchen table where she had slid the envelope toward him a decade earlier. He opened it with the steady hands of someone who has been preparing for a moment so long that the preparation has become its own form of peace. Inside was one sentence. Do you finally understand why I stayed? He read it twice and set it down, looking at it from a slight distance, as though the additional inches might help him understand what he was looking at. Their marriage had been happy. He had never questioned why she stayed. The question felt like a message intended for someone else. That evening, he began looking through the boxes he had carried through every move without opening. The acceptance letter was dated 3 weeks before Noah's sister Mara had lost her parents in an accident that left her 11 years old and suddenly without anyone. The program was in Lisbon. 18 months. One of 6 students selected internationally that year. Isabel's name sat on the letterhead in the particular formal font of something genuinely prestigious. Below the letter was a plane ticket. Purchased. The departure date was circled in her handwriting. Below that, a housing confirmation near the architecture faculty. Below that, a sketchbook filled with drawings of a city she had researched with the thoroughness of someone already beginning to live there. She had been days from leaving. He had believed Isabel had chosen their life together. He had not understood that choosing it had required setting down a life that was already beginning. The guilt arrived with a force that surprised him even as he recognized it. Then, tucked beneath the sketchbook, he found a single folded page. It was softer than the rest, handled more than the rest, as though opened and refolded many times before being put away for good. At the top, in handwriting smaller than her careful lettering on the housing forms, was a list. No heading, no date. Just a column of lines, each beginning the same way. The way he reads in the morning before he's fully awake, like the words are arriving to him instead of the other way around. How he forgets he's hungry when he's working, and how I'll bring him food and watch him be surprised by it. The specific quiet of being in a room with him when neither of us is performing anything for the other. How he says my name when he's worried, different from how he says it the rest of the time. The entries grew shorter near the bottom, as though writing them had become harder, not easier. The smell of his coat, waking up before him just to have a few minutes of choosing to stay. And at the very end, set apart by a line drawn beneath it like a closing. I don't know how to want one future without grieving the other. I think that's the part no one tells you, that you can be certain and still be breaking. Noah read the page 3 times. His thumb rested where the paper had worn thin. He had spent the better part of an hour believing Isabel had surrendered something extraordinary for something ordinary, for him, for a life that asked less of her than Lisbon would have. The acceptance letter had made him feel like a quiet consolation. But the list was not the writing of a woman settling. It was the writing of a woman who had loved 2 futures at once, fully, and had been trying, in private, to grieve one of them honestly before letting it go. She had not been choosing between a dream and a man who happened to be available. She had been choosing between 2 lives she genuinely wanted. He found the journal after that. The entry was dated 6 months after Mara came to live with them, written in the measured, unperformed way Isabel wrote when thinking clearly. She had written, "People keep asking if I regret it, as though regret is the natural response to choosing something you cannot explain in terms of what you gave up. I chose the life that had Noah in it. The architecture would have been extraordinary, but I have never been interested in the extraordinary version of a life that doesn't have him in it. That's not sacrifice. That is just knowing what you want." Noah read the passage 3 times. Then he found the final message she had left him, tucked beneath the journal, in a sealed envelope he had not noticed until that moment. She had known he would find the documents eventually. She had known he would convert her choice into a debt she had never asked him to carry. That is why she created the question. Not to explain herself. She had already done that plainly in the journal. The question was for him. She had written, "The question I left you was never really asking you to understand my decision. You never needed to, because I was never confused about it. The question I left you was asking whether you had learned, across 10 years of carrying it, to receive love without turning it into a burden. Whether you could accept being chosen without spending the rest of your life trying to justify having been worth it." Noah sat with the final message, the acceptance letter, the small folded list, and the journal open to the entry about knowing what she wanted. He felt something release in him that he had not known was held. For 10 years, Noah thought the envelope contained a question about Isabel, but sitting there, with her final words in his hands, he finally understood. The real question was, can you stop feeling guilty for being loved? And for the first time in a very long time, the answer was yes.